I got to draw a couple of issues of the secondary Spider-Man title. They've guest starred this character, Daredevil, that I'd never really paid much attention to. I mean, I'd read the old Stan Lee, Gene Colan issues, and I really enjoyed them, but I had never thought of this guy as a major player. And this guy, Daredevil, I kind of dug him because, well, how many superheroes are known for what they can't do? I mean, Superman can fly and lift up buildings and all of that. Batman's ridiculously smart and he's got all the technology in the world. And Spider-Man can spin webs and swing across buildings. Daredevil, he's blind. He can't see. That's his distinguishing feature. I fell in love. This guy was perfect. He could be the perfect hard-boiled superhero.
Station gang, and welcome back to Surrounded by Shortboxes with your boy Stu from Dr. Doom's fan club. The show is a spotlight on my favorite back issues and why I love them so much. And today, we're opening up one of the more haunting, stripped down, unforgettable single issues that Marvel Comics has ever published, in my humble opinion. Daredevil number 191, aka Roulette. Written and drawn by Frank Miller, with inks by Terry Austin and colors by Lynn Barley, this 1983 issue brings a close to Frank Miller's first game-changing run on The Man Without Fear. There is no epic rooftop scrap or shocking character death here, serving as the incant to the arc. No, instead Miller tightens our focus to one room, one gun, and the sound of a trigger clicking on an empty chamber. Let's get into this book and why I love it so much.
Oh! Go ahead, Nikki. Go ahead. Just do it. Do it. Go ahead. You made it.
Books. This is Frank Miller. He's hot. You better take a look at him.
When Frank Miller first came on to Daredevil in 1979, it wasn't as a writer, but as a young artist with a sharp style that immediately stood out. Within a year, Marvel had handed him the keys to both the art and the story, and the title was soon transformed. What had been a struggling, often second-tier book suddenly became one of Marvel's most daring adult series. Miller shifted Daredevil's world from colorful superhero antics to something more grounded and noir-inspired, steeped in citywide corruption and crime. With editor Denny O'Neil giving him the space and the freedom he needed to experiment, Miller built a version of Daredevil that felt less like a costume adventurer and more like a tragic pulp hero, walking the shadowy streets of Hell's Kitchen. He drew heavily upon the New York City of the late 70s and early 80s and the dystopian lawlessness that seemed so pervasive there at the time. By the time we reach issue 191, Miller and inker Klaus Janson have already transformed Daredevil with the introduction of Elektra, the rise of the Kingpin as his ultimate nemesis, and of course the shocking death of Elektra at Bullseye's hands. There truly is no comparison when it comes to the significance of a writer's impact on the legacy of The Man Without Fear when you're looking at Frank's. He completely redefined and developed Matt's supporting cast and his world. Elektra, The Hand, Stick are all original Frank Miller creations, a trio of new additions that's a great representation of the Eastern mysticism that Miller was so fond of, and he was able to flawlessly integrate these elements into his new iteration of Daredevil. Kingpin wasn't a Miller creation, traditionally a Spider-Man villain up to that point in time, right? Nonetheless, Miller boldly recasts him as Daredevil's ultimate nemesis, and his crime lord persona, his manipulation, and his personal battles with Matt Murdock will come to define Daredevil and his best stories for years to come. Bullseye also, while not a Frank Miller invention, was redefined by Uncle Frank, from a gimmicky hitman into Daredevil's most terrifying and unpredictable foe. Frank showcased his sadism, his obsession, and his sheer lethal skill by having Bullseye murder Elektra and repeatedly push Matt to the edge Miller cemented him as the chaotic counterpoint to Daredevil's discipline and morality, which serves us so well in this comic we're about to speak on. So, these stories and this incredible supporting cast ripped away any illusions that Daredevil was a B-lister. Miller had elevated him to the A tier, a hero grappling with love, loss, morality, and faith in ways no other Marvel character was at the time. Roulette serves as a perfect epilogue to that run. Not a grand battle or a triumphant ending, but a quiet, devastating reflection on everything Matt has endured. It's the last click of the chamber before Miller leaves the stage, and the silence this book leaves in its wake echoes louder than anything else we could have gotten. So without further ado, folks, let's get into this issue. Our setup here is stark. Daredevil sits at the bedside of Bullseye, who has been paralyzed after Matt came for revenge and dropped him from the telephone wires at a great height back in issue 181. The man who murdered Elektra is now helpless, silent, unable to move or respond. Matt Murdock pulls out a revolver. His inner monologue speaks to what the gun is, a .38 revolver, and its only purpose, quote, the only reason it's bought, stolen, or smuggled onto the island of Manhattan is to kill people. Daredevil spins the chamber, presses the gun to his head, and pulls the trigger. It's a jarring, shocking, unforgettable way to open a comic book. He then turns the gun on Bullseye, pointing the gun right in Bullseye's face, and does the same. Bullseye's reaction is wide-eyed and full of fear. What is going on here? What follows is Matt unpacking his grief, lamenting the toll violence has taken on both his personal and his professional life. And he does this through the real heart of the issue here, the story of Chucky, a boy that Daredevil once tried to help. So Matt begins the story. He initially meets Chucky through his father, Hank Jurgens, who Matt may legally defend against claims that he's been embezzling funds. The violence and the abuse between father and son is implied here through snide comments that Hank makes about Chucky, like lamenting the fact he's obsessed with Daredevil instead of being into football, to the point that Chucky feels compelled to apologize for his idolization of Daredevil. Though Matt can't see the entire picture of why Chucky idolizes him, he is nonetheless drawn to the boy and intrigued by him. He visits Chucky at school and gives him a ride on his back across the rooftops of the city. The ride of his life, all after he gets picked on for being an oddball by wanting to play superheroes his way on the playground. But what may seem like innocent fun here ends up sending both Chucky and Daredevil down a fated path together. We pull away from Chucky's story and continue with Bullseye and Daredevil alone in this room, and 2 more clicks of the trigger. I love how emotionally powerful Miller's silent storytelling is here. And to this point, this is one thing I didn't initially pick up on with this issue the first time around. This isn't a spoken monologue from Daredevil to Bullseye. This is all internal from Matt Murdock. This game of roulette he's playing with his distorted mirror and Bullseye is a completely silent, soundless affair except for the harrowing clicks of the trigger. And that must make it all the more terrifying for Bullseye. Miller is so restrained and disciplined in the storytelling here, with the less is more approach really singing. And the art underscores every beat of that tension. His layouts are sparse and claustrophobic, and this hospital room feels more like a confessional booth. So back to our story. Soon we learn that Chucky, trying to exonerate his father, was following his accuser, trying to get the dirt on him. He ends up jumping on the back of his car to follow him right to a meetup with his own father, Hank. And as it turns out, they're both corrupt. Jutter is blackmailing Hank over his embezzlement scheme. Matt, who'd been following Chucky, forgets about him and scrambles to change into his Daredevil gear, getting there just as Hank pulls a gun on Jutter. Chucky sees this and comes out from his hiding spot. Hank sees his son and tells him to go home. But then Daredevil makes himself known, comes up behind Hank and asks him, what is he going to do, shoot his own son? Hank turns the gun on Matt, and Daredevil takes him down. He takes his time with Hank, all in front of his son, Chucky. This leaves Chucky all the way broken, essentially. with his two lifelong heroes in conflict in such a way that it does irreparable damage to his psyche. On the surface, justice has been served. The boy is freed from the cycle of abuse and fear that his father embodied, yet Miller's script doesn't indulge in clean victories, and we do not get one here. Chucky is a kid who's internalized this pain, this violence, and this mistrust, and he now has to navigate this world where the most important figure of his life has turned into kind of his greatest source of terror. If Daredevil put a stop to his father because he was bad, does that inherently make Chucky bad also? That is the child's frame of thought moving forward. And he's locked in the psychosis of just rewatching Daredevil fight Bullseye and wondering if he's just evil by nature. So at school, when he gets bullied again, Chucky lashes out and responds with the only language he's ever been taught at this point: violence. He pulls out a 38, the same gun his father had, the same gun Daredevil has, and he shoots a classmate in the arm in a shocking turn of events. Now, this classmate survives, but for Matt, this incident isn't just tragic, it's damning because it suggests that maybe his intervention did more harm than good. And it underscores Daredevil's central torment throughout this comic book. Is he fighting violence or is he teaching it? It's at this point in the story that we get another incredible revelation. Matt confesses that he endured his own father's abuse at one point. After getting in a fight as a kid, something he had promised his father he would never ever do, he returns home all roughed up to his father's furious, drunken temper, and he gets a hard smack across the face for it. Matt runs out of the apartment. He spends the night up on the Brooklyn Bridge, and then and there he resolves to become a lawyer. There has to be control. There has to be rules. There have to be consequences. So as we come away from that fateful night with Matt as a child, where his professional life is set, we're back in the room with Daredevil and Bullseye. And our narration to end the issue is flawless. And I guess that's what it all comes down to, Bullseye. When I fight you and beat you and know deep in my heart that I'm right in what I do, when I hate you and you're kind so fiercely I could cry, when I can see that you are black and evil and have no right to live, when at long last, I've got you set squarely in my sights and I smell your fear, and it is sweet to smell. When it comes to that one final fatal act of ending you, my gun has no bullets. Guess we're stuck with each other, Bullseye. It's with this parallel of failed father figures and the cyclical guilt and shame of violence and abuse that all adds to Matt feeling horrible about the Chucky situation. Chucky admired superheroes, particularly Daredevil, with a home life shattered by an abusive father. Matt stepped in, trying to be the savior, the protector, the symbol. It felt good to be loved and admired, and it backfired. Chucky's situation only grew worse, and in the end, the cycle consumed him. He picked up that gun and he fired. Daredevil thought he was saving Chucky, but instead he helped ensure he would become another victim in this cycle. That's what makes Roulette so devastating. As he spins this revolver and spins Chucky's tail, we realize this is Matt Murdock circling the abyss. Broken but barely hanging on, this whole second guessing of his legacy and purpose speaks to the dichotomy of his existence. He's a lawyer who believes in justice, but he's also a man who lives outside the law. He's a hero who saves lives, but sometimes he leaves horrific scars and death in his wake. And Miller writes this internal dialogue for Matt in these sweeping spirals, right? It's vulnerable and self-contradicting, it's raw, and it's full of doubt. It's an incredible glimpse into the psyche of Matt Murdock and Daredevil, and it turns the concept of superheroes on its head. I love Roulette, aka Daredevil in 191, because it's not a superhero comic in the traditional sense. It's an intimate character study wrapped in the trappings of costumed heroics. Frank Miller strips away the spectacle to give us a story that's just Daredevil, a seemingly loaded gun, and a paralyzed villain. It's a meditation on the cycle of abuse and violence, fathers and sons, and the weight of choices, with Matt Murdock wrestling not with his enemies but with himself. The Russian roulette framing device is brilliant in its simplicity, and the tension is tight as a drum. I love how this book lingers long, long after you put it down. Sign of any great piece of art. Issue doesn't give you closure at all. It leaves you unsettled, haunted by Chucky's fate and by Matt's doubt and whether he's making a difference at all. It's rare for a superhero comic to embrace that kind of ambiguity, but Roulette thrives on it. It captures why Daredevil works best as a character. He's a man of faith who constantly struggles with despair, a hero who knows that saving the day doesn't always mean saving the soul. That hard truth makes this story both timeless and unforgettable. That's it for me this time, gang. As always, make sure you like this video, you're subscribed, leave a comment, let me know what your favorite Frank Miller Daredevil issue is in the comments. Thanks for watching. As always, stay surrounded by Shortboxes, my friends.
Matt's been the guy I punish for all my, mistakes and sins. Because he really is, he is a flawed hero. In that he's a man who intends to do good and causes much damage. Matt should have been a villain. He had a horrible childhood. His romantic life is the worst. Oh, sure, the girls look great, but they end up dead or killing him or something. But somehow this guy redeems himself and moves ahead. He just doesn't give up. He's just like his dad.
Till we meet again on Doomsday.